10 of my favorite brain foods. Actually, we can memorize these very quickly. Everyone touch the top of your head and just say avocados. And imagine you're using guacamole to condition your scalp. The second place is your nose. And I want you to imagine the second brain food, which are blueberries. Imagine blueberries coming out of your nose. Smell them, feel them in your nose. I like to call them brain berries. Number 3 is your mouth. Third brain food, broccoli. So imagine broccoli stuck in your teeth, but taste it and feel it. It's uncomfortable and you're embarrassed. All right, the fourth place on your body, your ears. And you're cleaning it with the fourth brain food, which is olive oil. So imagine you're cleaning your ears with olive oil. The fifth place is your throat. So say it out loud. What's number 5?
Throat.
I want you to imagine eggs. So imagine like a hard-boiled egg. Instead of an Adam's apple, there's like a hard-boiled egg or an Easter egg or something to make it memorable. We're halfway there. And you probably remember what food is on top of your head, right?
Avocado.
Yeah.
Blueberries. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show, Jim. I saw that you were at the biohacking conference this week, and I was really bummed. I was like, man, I should have gone.
Yeah.
Lots of great guests there, and Dave is such a good friend. And it looks like you've gone before.
It was, they've done 10 of them. I've been on the main stage the last 9 years. And so I think Dave is the only person who's spoken more at this event than me. But it's an honor. Biohacking is something that I got to host Dave's very first book party in Los Angeles, at my home in Los Angeles in 2014 when Bulletproof Diet came out. That's like 10 years just flies by now. I imagine a lot of people listening, there's like this time distortion. You had this experience where time either stands still or it just goes rapid fire. And it's amazing. It's a lifetime ago. But we missed you there.
I've only been one time. I went in LA a few years ago and I loved it. It was great. And actually the thing that I did right before I went is I went to Dr. Amen and had my brain scanned. So like my natural curiosity for all of this stuff runs so deep. I love health stuff. I've been through my own health journeys and but the brain as well. I feel like I'm getting more and more interested in the brain and just how it works and longevity.
Yeah.
So was there any, when you spoke at the conference, was it new information? Did you learn anything? Were you inspired by anything? Like what's coming down the pipeline for brain health?
The event is it's biohacking conference. So it's kind of the science and art of upgrading yourself, your human biology. And my personal interest lies in the brain. I feel like our brains, if people are watching this on your YouTube, I'm wearing a brain on my shirt. I'm always pointing to my brain in photos, but it's just, I feel like what you see, you take care of. Your skin, your hair, your car. You can see when it's kind of deteriorating or it's not up to par, but you don't see the thing that takes care of us. So I'm always trying to kind of emphasize that. It was great. The speakers, you had everyone from Dr. Joe Mercola to Dr. Joe Dispenza. I didn't get to see all the talks because I was doing a lot of interviews, but got to speak 3 times. And the expos are amazing. I don't know how much you do like in terms of biohacking technologies.
Yeah. I mean, if you could see around my room here, you'd see lasers and I'm like, actually my feet are on a grounding mat that's ground into the outlet. I've got an amethyst mat sitting in the corner right over here. I've got crystal bowls behind me that are frequency bowls. So, my curiosity and love for biohacking in all kinds of ways runs deep.
Yeah, there's some wonderful tools and technologies that are coming online that help us advance and accelerate, our progress. And then some of the things that the basics are mostly free, so everyone listening, whether you could get to a conference or subscribe or get your hands on some of these tools. I think some of the things that I'm really leaning into are just, most of the biohacking tools out there are to mimic nature, grounding pads to mimic, earthing on the ground, or, oxygen devices to mimic, your breathing exercises, or a red light to mimic the sun, or, cold plunges and so on, leading to mimic, jumping into the lake or ocean or doing something like that. Yeah, for me, when I start my day, it's interesting. I used to have this very elaborate, few hours, but I just realized it wasn't very sustainable over
Yeah, I get you. I totally get you.
past that time. So for me, I read years ago that ancient civilizations, some of them like Babylonian times, ancient Greeks, they used to believe everything was made of four elements: air, fire, water, and earth. So I make my morning routine very simple. I just want to get those four elements in my body within 12 minutes of waking. So when I wake up, first thing I do is I go outside and I get fire, right? The direct sunlight to help reset my circadian rhythms. So it helps me sleep better at night. Your eyes are the only part of your brain that's outside of your skull. And yeah, so if I don't do that, I don't get as restful sleep. But that's the fire. I'm barefoot. So you live on, fortunate enough to live on the water. So my feet will be on the sand or on the grass. And there's an electron exchange, helps you to relax and, reduce this kind of this stress inside of our body. So that's earth. I hydrate because people don't realize we can lose up to a pound of water when we sleep. We have a podcast, and we had Dr. Lisa Mosconi. She's a neuroscientist and a nutritionist, and she was saying if you're just 2% dehydrated, it could significantly impact your cognitive health and your cognitive performance. And staying hydrated could boost your reaction time, your thinking speed upwards of 30%. But we could lose, again, a lot of water when we sleep. So I just hydrate first thing in the morning with some kind of electrolytes or salts or lemon or something like that. So that's my water. So I have sun, which is the fire, the earth, the grounding, and then the water, and then finally air. It's when I do my breathing exercises. Everybody has different breathing exercises: alpha breathing, box breathing, fire breathing, Wim Hof breathing. I find everybody has their morning routine. Oprah has hers, and Tony has his, and Tim. Mine is really about just getting my nervous system right, so I could really win the day. You've heard this phrase: if you want to win the day, you got to win the first hour of the day. And 12 minutes is something people could do. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's free. You could do it with your kids if you feel like, or your significant other.
Stress is a common factor that affects everyone in today's fast-paced world, leading to various issues. What if the answer to better stress response is in a key ingredient? I'm talking about magnesium. Actually, I'm specifically talking about Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. This one-of-a-kind product is designed to reverse low levels of magnesium, which could be leading to a multitude of health problems. What sets Magnesium Breakthrough apart is its ability to support healthy levels of stress hormones like cortisol, a better balanced stress response in your nervous and hormonal systems, and a healthy production of GABA, the relaxing neurotransmitter leading to a more peaceful and better flow state. That's why I recommend Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers. It's the only organic full-spectrum magnesium supplement that includes 7 unique forms of magnesium for stress resilience and better sleep, all in one bottle. Simply go to bioptimizers.com/prettyintense using promo code prettyintense. There are always amazing gifts with purchase. Go now to bioptimizers.com/prettyintense to get your magnesium breakthrough and find out this month's gift with purchase. What was included in your crazy, multiple hour regime that you had for a little?
Yeah, I mean, when I have an occasional time to not have to be with our family, or I've been traveling a lot, I need to reset. So my morning routine is I wake up, this is set. I have a video with Simon Sinek, who I know has been on your show.
And it says, love Simon, actually. Yeah. He's a good friend too.
37 million views on Facebook. It's just us talking about the dangers of using your phone, especially first thing in the morning, right? And this is it's got to be 10 years old, this video. And but just I don't grab my phone, because when you wait, okay, so you have your to-do list. I highly suggest it's more important to have a not to-do list, your non-negotiables, the things you've read. I mentioned a lot of books that people have seen me with Oprah or Elon or these individuals. People always ask how we bonded, and we bonded over books, right? You read to succeed. Leaders are readers. But when you have you wake up in the morning, you're incredibly suggestible. There's a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. Say no to good so you can say yes to great. And I feel like there's this opportunity cost to do things that we do. Obviously, there's a stress that comes from, FOMO of not doing something. Some of us feel like so attached to our phones. But the challenge is if you pick up your phone first thing in the morning, when you wake up, your brain is in the most relaxed state, most suggestible state of the day. And the first thing you do is pick up your phone. You wire your brain for two things that could be hurting your performance, your productivity, your prosperity, and even peace of mind. Number one, you wire your brain for distraction, right? Every ring, ping, ding, app notification, social media alert, like, share, comment, whatever, cat video, that dopamine flood it's driving you to distraction. And how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you start your day flexing your distraction muscles, you wonder why you can't focus in your meetings or with your family or on a Zoom, right?
Yeah.
But the second thing you wire your brain to do is not only distraction, is reaction.
AG1 is a foundational nutritional supplement that delivers daily nutrition through gut health support and is backed by multiple research studies, so you can trust what you're putting in your body. I trust AG1 because, unlike so many products, their entire formula is backed by research studies, not just the ingredients. Over 14 years, AG1 has been focused on innovation with a trusted, nutrient-dense blend that's the perfect complement to my diet. I can trust their research and how they're validating the product working in the body. AG1 has been third-party tested for safety for years and is trusted by experts and medical professionals, giving you one less thing to research. They're posting results online from their studies, and it's interesting to see how many of the study participants had the same feelings of energy, focus, supported digestion, all from using AG1. For example, at 30 days, 80% of the people in the research study noticed less gas and bloating. 97% of the people in a research study felt more energy. If there's one product I trust to support my whole body health, it's AG1. And that's why I've partnered with them for so long. It's easy and satisfying to start your journey with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/prettyintense. That's drinkag1.com/prettyintense. Check it out.
I find that, for your listeners, they want to achieve, they want to grow, they want to be able to give. And it's really hard to do that from a place of defense, right? So if you pick up your phone, you're on the defense automatically first thing in the morning. You're fighting fires, you get one voicemail, text message, social media message, whatever, email that hijacks your mood for hours. And then all of a sudden, my buddy Brendan Burchard, who wrote Motivation Manifesto, says your inbox is nothing but a convenient organizational system for other people's agenda for your life. So all of a sudden you're fighting fires and you're not, you're taking care of everyone else's agenda, but not necessarily your own. So instead, to answer your question, I wake up and I do this thought experiment, which I challenge everyone to do tomorrow morning. Just take 2 minutes. I wake up, instead of touching my phone, I close my eyes and I imagine myself finishing my day, coming back to bed. And so the full day is gone through, and my wife asked me, I imagine, how's your day? Right? Something you ask, people. And I imagine myself saying, today was amazing. Oh my goodness, what a great day. We crushed it today. And then I asked myself, what had to happen in order for me to feel that way? And then narrow down 3 things personally and 3 things professionally. And those 6 things are my target for that day. And because
target, that's a lot of targets. That's quite a bit of target.
Yeah. Well, as opposed to a 200 to-do list, right?
But now are you saying like that, that's your to-do list, meaning like, oh, if I, schedule my dentist appointment, and if I, close this deal, or if I, talk to this security agency, is that what you mean? Or is it more like, if I'm really happy, if I, if I laugh a lot today, is it more like mood energy, or is it like actual accomplishments?
It's more accomplishments for me. I'm sure people could tailor it for themselves. 3 personal, 3 professional, and they don't have to be big things. Like on my personal list today it's a beautiful day out. I want to take my, our 2 dogs out for a walk, extended walk. And so that would be a win for me. It's not huge, but I think about working backwards, right? Like, in sports, that when it's time to celebrate, because you look at a scoreboard and it
Mhm.
shows, right? But I
Mhm.
don't think we have that for our days. So for me, again, it's that emotional satisfaction. If I say like, wow, today was amazing, I ask myself what had to happen in order for it to be amazing, in the first place. Kind of
Yeah.
like before we started recording, I was like, what would
Mhm. Oh yeah.
if you look back on this episode and it's out, what would you like people to say about it? And then you work backwards. It gives you some kind of target to aim for. So 3 things personally, 3 things professionally. Like this conversation was one of my 3 things, right? I want to have an amazing conversation with you. I respect your work. I think it's a great opportunity to impact and open people's minds to a new subject matter. And that would be one of my 3. Right. So I do that, and then I go and I do my some of the biohacking. That's my favorite is I met Wim Hof in 2012 speaking in Boston together. So I've been doing cold every single day.
Mhm.
For me, it does better than coffee to reset my nervous system. I never like it, but I do it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you probably have heard that recent. I think it was Goggins and Huberman talking about the part of your brain that's activated when you do things that you don't want to do,
Yeah.
and but you have to actually not want to do it. And for sure, cold usually qualifies because nobody gets. I did it today too, and I look at him like, no, yes, just do it. Get lower, just get in. Like you never
Right.
want
And I
to.
think life, if we do the easy things in life, life gets hard over time. But if we do the hard things in life, life gets easier.
I
And
agree.
and I think our
Totally.
nervous system, our brains certainly are the ultimate adaptation machine, and it responds really well to novelty and challenge. And with challenge comes change, right? My
Mm.
as a brain coach, memory coach for let's see, I'm 51, so I've been doing this for 32 years plus years, and I learn a lot about performance in this area. We get a lot of feedback through our podcasts and courses and books and everything. But I realize that it's not how smart somebody is; it's really how are they smart. And it's interesting because at events like the conference we were mentioning earlier, I speak a lot, probably 300,000 people in total audiences like a year. And sometimes if there's time, I'll do these demonstrations where I'll pass around a microphone in an audience and everyone will introduce themselves and, maybe 50, 60, 100 people. And then I'll memorize all their names, right? Or something else. And I always tell people I don't do this to impress you. I really do this to express to you what's possible. Because the truth is every single one of your listeners, for the most part, they could do that and a lot more. They just weren't taught. There was no class called, school taught us what to learn, math, history, science, but there was 0 class on how to learn, right? There's no classes on how to study, how to focus, how to concentrate. Like going to somebody on your team or going to your children saying focus is like going to somebody pointing them, say, play the ukulele, right? Who's never had any training on how to do that. There was no class on how to do that. And I think one of the most important classes back in school would have been retention. I always thought it should have been the 4th R in school. They teach you reading, writing, arithmetic. But what about recall, retention? Socrates said learning is remembering. And I realize there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. We just haven't had any proper training in that area. So the largest chapter in our book, Limitless, is on memory improvement. Like, because I believe 2 of the most costly words, Danica, are I forgot. Think about the consequence of saying, I forgot to do it. I forgot to buy it. I forgot to go to that appointment. I forgot what I was
Or
going
I
to say.
forgot what you said. I forgot that important
I forgot
memory that you shared that I'm like, oh God,
all of it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I did forget, I know
Yeah.
it's important to you. And I know that it may sound like it's not important to me, but it is. How did I forget that?
Yeah. Or forgot something have you ever read a page in a book, got to the end and just forgot what you just read? Or you
A
get
million times.
you get somebody's name and you meet a lot of people, and then all of a sudden you forgot the name seconds later after the handshake breaks. And so on the other side, though, I think memory could make you money and just a lot, not just financial success, but other areas when you could easily remember client information, product information, give speeches without notes, remember names and faces. Life just gets a lot easier. But there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and untrained memory. The reason I know this is I grew up with severe learning challenges. I was put in special education. I had a brain injury when I was 5 years old. So I had very bad fall.
What happened?
So I was in kindergarten class and there were these fire engines outside and all the kids, we couldn't see outside the window because we're tiny. So everyone grabbed their chairs. We grabbed our chairs and to look outside the window. And I lost my balance on the chair and I went head first into the radiator and rushed to the hospital. And my parents said before before the accident, I was very playful, energized and curious. I became very shut down and I would have these migraines every day. At the age of 5, I would have balance issues, memory, focus, processing issues where people would repeat themselves and I just didn't understand. I would pretend to understand. It took me 3 years longer to learn how to read, just basic, like all the other kids. I remember I was slowing down the class when I was 9 and I was being teased in that class by the other kids. And a teacher came to my defense. She pointed to me and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the boy with the broken brain." Adults have to be very careful of their external words because they often become a child's internal words. So every single time I did badly in school, I would say, "Oh, because I have the broken brain." When I was in pick for sports, which was like all the time, I would say, "Because I have the broken brain."
Such a negative reinforcement.
Yeah. So that label became my limit. So, but that reason I bring that up is because my 2 biggest challenges were learning growing up and because of it, public speaking, because I never knew the answer and I was terrified. Being, having the spotlight. So I would always sit behind the tall kid in class all the way in the back because I never wanted the attention. And life has a sense of humor because what do? Every day of my life, I public speak on this thing called learning. But it's another example that with challenge comes change, that when you do hard things, life gets easier and we can adapt. And with our struggles often lead to strengths. We hear a lot about post-traumatic stress. We don't hear a lot about post-traumatic growth. People who have gone through adversity, challenges they wouldn't wish upon anybody, but they wouldn't change it for themselves because what they went through, they found some kind of gift, be it a strength, clarity, maybe they found a purpose or a mission, something that gave them, some even more meaning so that they grew from that difficulty. So I think adversity can be an advantage, but when you put yourself through adversity, like a cold plunge or a hot sauna or a hard workout, right? Or studying and reading something difficult, then you get to change, you get to adapt, you get to be stronger. And I feel like reaching that goal is one thing, but I think who you have to become to reach that goal is probably even more satisfying.
So the body follows the brain. Would you say that's true?
I think our physiology affects our psychology and vice versa. Like one of the things I do and sometimes do is like I'll use my body when I first wake up as part of my morning routine, like eating with the opposite hand or brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. And I challenge everyone to actually try this tomorrow because first of all, it stimulates a different part of your brain. So let's say you're right-handed, but you brush your teeth with your left because it challenges your right side of your brain, and left and right brain, I'm oversimplifying, but left is logic, it's words, it's sound. The right brain's more creativity, visualization, emotion. And so it stimulates a different part of your brain, which I think is important. It's like mental fitness. But the second thing it does is it forces you to be present. Going back to how you do anything is how you do everything, especially first thing that day, sets momentum. And if you're brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, it forces you to just focus on the act of what you're doing.
You don't miss and brush your teeth.
Exactly, because you're not going to be very good at it the first handful of times, as opposed to like when you're doing something else. Let's say you're driving, you've done it so much and driving slowly, you could be doing 5 things, right? You're texting, you're checking the mirror, you're singing a song, you're drinking your coffee, thinking about the dry cleaning, whatever, because it's something that you've done. But if you challenge yourself to do something with like your opposite hand, it's a wonderful way to keep your brain more fit. But the third thing to do is it's a wonderful gateway habit. We have a whole chapter in Limitless talking about how to design habits and break, poor habits, right? The science of it. And getting yourself to, after a while, using your opposite hand while you brush your teeth is so simple. But after you get it, then you're like, wow, it becomes evidence that you could add new habits and create new habits, right? And it becomes kind of like a gateway to maybe you want to create the habit of meditation or habit of journaling or habit of working out or exercise or making your smoothie or whatever. So I feel like there's a quote in Limitless that says life is the letter C between B and D. Life is C between B and D, where B stands for birth and D stands for death. Life, C, choice.
No.
You know, our life is a sum total of all the choices we've made between birth and death. And I believe these difficult times for all of us, they could distract us. These difficult times can diminish us, or these difficult times, they could develop us. We decide, right, with the choices. And if you want to make a positive choice, if you want positive change in your life, there's only 4 choices you can make. So I'm going to oversimplify it, but I feel like it's accurate. So I think everybody, once getting some kind of new result in their life, they have to do a new behavior. So there's only 4 new behaviors. You could either stop something, you could start something, you could do less of something, or you could do more of something. That's literally it. Because if you do the 5th option, which is do the same thing, then that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So you can stop.
That's your loop. Now you're in the loop.
And it's a wonderful filter when you're listening or reading something. You say, okay, what can I stop? What can I start? What can I do less of? What can I do more of? So maybe, you know, to make changes, let's say it's your health. Maybe you could stop smoking. You could start meditating. You could do less binge watching, you know, shows. You could do more movement, you know, and then that puts you on a different, like one step in another direction can completely change your destination. Right?
Yeah.
If you're walking one way, you stop and take a step in another direction, it changes where you're going to end up. And I feel like life is similar, and it comes down to the agency we have, because we can make choices every day. You know, is this good for my brain or is this bad for my brain? You know, these are simple choices. Is who I'm spending time with, what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm ingesting. You know, is this good? You know, is it good for my brain or is it bad for my brain? So some simple ideas like that. But yeah, my morning routine is getting my mindset right, and I like to do my cold plunge. I do my sauna in the evening. Because it helps me sleep better. When you leave the sauna or you take a hot shower, a nice Epsom salt bath or whatever, transdermally, the magnesium helps you to relax. But also when you leave that sauna or that shower, your core body temperature drops, and it's a sign for your nervous system to produce melatonin, which is the hormone to help you relax and phase into that sleep. You know, but here, you know, I have a hard hyperbaric chamber. That was a big part of my...
Oh, wow. Hard, huh? You went all the way. I had a soft one here, but too lazy.
Yeah. Dr. Hyman did a scan because I had 3 head injuries before age 12, and he put me on a protocol of nutrition and hyperbaric and 40 hyperbaric sessions. And the scan afterwards was like night and day, you know? And so I'm a believer in hyperbaric as a potential therapy. People should talk to their health practitioner, obviously. But yeah, we have a float tank. You know, we have you know, those toys. It didn't start out that way, but you know, with the life we live and traveling and just work, it's pretty intense. So recovery is a big part. But how I simplify things now, and I challenge people to, you don't have to do it exactly how I do it, but understand the principle behind it so you could adapt it for your own life. There's this expense that we have when we are switching from task to task, right? When you're doing one thing and then you multitask, try to do something else and go back to this thing, we waste time. It uses up a lot of energy. The shutdown, like if you're on writing an email or whatever, a certain part of your brain is lit up, like a network, like a web. And just do that to have a meeting, whatever. You have to shut down this, turn on another web. So you make more mistakes. You could use a lot of energy. It takes 5 or 10 minutes to regain your focus, you know, on a new task. So what I do is I task batch for my peace of mind and my productivity. What does that mean? I try to do all my creative work in the morning. So there's 3 phases, 3 C's. I tend to alliterate just to make it memorable. In the morning, I create. In the afternoon, I consume. And the evening, I clear. Now, it's not always like that, because I have interviews and, you know, appointments like everybody else. But in general, I like to try to activate the same part of my brain and activity at the same time, batch those things together. Like all my calls, do them together, right? So I don't have to switch out of that mode of communicating. So in the morning, I create. So what am I doing? I'm writing my next book. I'm scripting out podcast episodes and so on. In the afternoon, I consume. So that's where I'm studying, I'm researching. listen to audiobooks or other people's podcasts or whatever. And then, so in the morning, my mind is pulling out information, I'm creating. In the afternoon, I'm pushing or, pulling information in, consuming. In the evening, I want to clear that information. So how do I clear? Because I want to sleep well. I want to get that parasympathetic rest and digest.
I'm gonna guess it's not with red wine.
No. But everybody could have their thing, because that's going back to power of choice. Because it helps you relax and manage your stress, then, who am I to say, or definitely not.
But it probably affects your sleep negatively.
Alcohol has been definitely shown. It helps people to knock them out, but that doesn't mean they're getting quality, REM or deep sleep. But going to the clearing, what do? I could, talk with my family, and that's a way of venting and just clearing my day. I could plan out the next day, the night before, get out of my head so I don't have to ruminate what I have to do the next day, make sure it's in my calendar. I can meditate as a way of clearing. I can do my floating, my yoga nidra, my journaling. It helps me to clear my mind, right? So that's generally what my modes are. Morning, create; afternoon, consume; evening, clear. And it's never 100% anywhere near that. But if I'm going to kind of have management over my schedule and I could stick to it 70% of the time, it just leads me to more getting the flow states, less energy expenditure.
Yeah. One of the things that you were mentioning earlier, there's so many different directions we can go here, but I'd like to talk about, you were talking about, sort of setting your intention for the day, and kind of got me on the thought of positive self-talk versus negative self-talk. And that I really believe that you said there's really only choice. And I'm like, I very much believe that perception is reality. So how do you sort of close that loop between your positive and negative self-talk, and then your perception of the day, kind of managing your day, and essentially, I would imagine, being able to change your life? So first off, like how does someone get into a rut of having negative self-talk?
So at these events that you and I sometimes present at, people invariably pull me out in the lobby aside quietly and say, "I'm so glad you're here as a memory coach. I have a horrible memory," or "I'm just too old. I'm not that smart," whatever. And I always say the same thing. I always say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Right? If you fight for your limits, they're yours. We have these stories of things, and they might be very true, but then nothing changes. In the book Limitless, I call them lies. LIE. It's a limited idea entertained. It's not necessarily true that you're not smart enough, or that you can't get this done or can't reach that goal or that you don't deserve it. It's just a limited idea that you're entertaining, right? And, your brain is this incredible supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself, "I'm not good at remembering people's names," you won't remember the name of the next person you meet, because you program your supercomputer not to. If people truly understood how powerful their mind is, they wouldn't say or think something they didn't want to be true. And that's not to say you have a negative thought and ruins your life any more than if you just eat that one donut, it will ruin your life. But if you eat that donut 3 dozen times a day, every single day, there's going to be some consequence, right? And I feel like the same thing with our negative thoughts. So I think the first step of making change is self-awareness, like to be conscious that you do have these thoughts. So if you find yourself saying something like, "I don't have a great memory," then you could, the awareness is first, but then you could augment it or edit it second and say, "I don't have a great memory," and just add a little word like "yet" at the end. "I don't have a great memory yet." It just opens up the possibility, the potential, if you will. Dr. Daniel Amen calls it killing ants, automatic negative thoughts, right? You squash those, because if you believe you can or believe you can't, either way, you're right?
That's my favorite quote, Henry Ford.
Yeah. And so I feel like a big part of it is our mindset, which are the set of assumptions and attitudes we have about something. So let's say people want to reach a goal of making a certain amount of money, right? But if their mindset is that their assumptions are money is the root of all evil, it doesn't grow on trees, you have to hurt people in order to make it, you're still going to be stuck in that box. So when I say choice, there are only 3 things we could there are three things we could always choose, and you control the controllables. So in Limitless, and you could search it online, just search my name, Limitless Model. I feel like it's the key for all of this, meaning that when all right, so everybody imagine something. So Limitless is not about being perfect. It's about advancing and progressing beyond what you believe is possible, right? What you believe you're capable of, what you've demonstrated. So imagine the opposite of being limitless is being limited, like you're stuck in a box. So let's do this thought experiment. Everyone listening, imagine an area of your life where you feel stuck in a box. You're not advancing. You're not progressing. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your impact. Maybe it's your money. Maybe it's your happiness. You feel limited. Maybe it's your reading speed, right? We teach people to read faster, improve memory. Maybe it's your memory. Maybe some area of your life you feel like you're stuck in a box. Now that box is 3-dimensional. So that means there are 3 forces that contain that box. And these are the same 3 forces that will liberate you out of that box. Right. And so I called those 3 forces the Limitless Model, and it's a Venn diagram. If everyone could imagine 3 intersecting circles, like Mickey Mouse, two big ears and a face, where they overlap a little bit. And on the face is 3 M's. Yeah. The last one, the face, are the methods. Everybody wants to know the method for investing, or the method for starting a business, or the method for getting healthy, or the method for whatever, right? Like dating, or reading faster. But so many people know the methods, but they don't do it, right? Because common sense is not common practice. I mean, most of your listeners, I would hallucinate, have forgotten more about success and wellness and spirituality than most of their friends and family will ever learn, right? You know, it's a different breed of people that subscribe to our works and watch our YouTubes and everything. Right. And what I would say is the people listening, they're very advanced and you know what to do, but do you do what you know? And so method, like when I was writing Limitless, before I hit send for my publisher, the book, the manuscript, I would ask myself, will 100% of the people who read this book get the results they're hoping for? And my honest answer was no. That was the real raw answer. And I was like, why? Well, a lot of people know what to do, but they don't do it. They know they should meditate or move more or eat better or whatever, prioritize their sleep. Yeah. And then I was like, there's 2 dimensions that we need to address. And there's the first 2 M's, the ears. So in the top left, the first M is mindset, right? And you've had experts come on, talk about mindset. This is a set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something. So let's say like money we talked about. So I'll tell you 3 things that everyone should be sensitive of in mindset circle. What you believe is possible. Because if you don't believe it's possible, then you can have the great methods. You're still gonna be stuck in that box because you're only gonna be able to achieve up to what you think is possible. The second thing is what you believe you're capable of. You might believe it's possible for somebody else, that it's possible for Danica to have this or to do this, or your friends to do this, or somebody that you follow to do this, but you might not believe you're capable of it, right? Then you're gonna be stuck in that box because all behavior is belief driven. In order to create new results, you need to do a new behavior. In order to do that new behavior, you need a belief that says it's possible, that you could do it. And then the third thing, besides what you believe is possible, what you believe you're capable of, third thing is what you believe you deserve, right? If you want to get out of that box and have more money, and you know the methods on how to whatever, but your mindset is, I don't deserve it. Or I don't deserve to be happy, or I don't deserve to be loved, or whatever. You're going to be, that dimension is going to keep you there. Now you could have limitless mindset and limitless methods, but the second and the final M is motivation. So let's say you have limitless mindset to achieve that goal. You believe it's possible, you're capable of it, you deserve it, and you know what to do, the methods to get where you want to go, but you're not motivated to get out of that box, right? And then you're stuck in that box. And so the key to motivation, and maybe this is the biggest takeaway for some people, if you struggle with procrastination. So there's 3 keys for limitless motivation. If you want to motivate yourself to do the hard things or to do the things you've been putting off, I believe the treasure you seek is hidden in the work you're avoiding, right? The treasure you seek is hidden in the work you're avoiding or you're scared to take on. And, life can be scary. Change can be scary, but you know what's scarier is regret, right? And so what I would say is the key if you want to motivate yourself, or here's a bonus, motivate somebody else. Motivate somebody else to buy, or motivate someone on your team, or motivate your kids to clean their room. It's the same formula. The formula is the letter P times E times S3. These are the 3 keys for limitless motivation. Because here's the thing, you don't have motivation, you do it. So a big part of my teaching is taking the nouns and turning them in your life, turning them into verbs. So we find ourselves, it's not just we limit our life because of external media and marketing and fear and everything, right? We shrink down because media and marketing is saying we're broken, we need to be fixed, we're not enough, whatever, right? It also could be self-hypnosis. Maybe we're not being hypnotized by the external world. Maybe we're self-hypnotizing ourselves by our words, right? So you say to yourself, I don't have focus. You don't have focus, which is a noun. You do it. There's a process for focusing. And when you turn things into a verb, the gift you give yourself is agency. You get your power back, as opposed to waking up and saying, I hope I have creativity and motivation and energy so I could write my book or whatever. You don't have motivation. You don't have energy. You do it. And you don't have energy. There's a process for generating energy, of sleeping well, of eating good food, of managing your stress, of being around high-five
so that
people.
You can do it, not so that you don't need to necessarily reach for it. You cultivate that. Cultivate that in other ways.
Exactly.
You don't have to think about it.
Right. And when you turn it into a process, it gives you power, as opposed to, I hope I wake up with some creativity, right? You don't have creativity, you do it. There's a process we teach for being more creative. So going back to motivation, when you say I don't have motivation, you don't have it. You're fooling yourself. Because I think like this conversation really is about transcending. You think about the word transcend. You're ending the trance. This hypnosis that we have put ourselves in, right? So you don't have motivation, you do it. How do you do it? P times E times S3. So if you want to motivate yourself, let's say it's to exercise, right? We know that when you exercise, is good for your brain, right? And you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF, which is like fertilizer for neuroplasticity. The primary reason we all have a brain is to control our movement. And as your body moves, your brain grooves. As your body moves, your brain literally grooves.
So it creates new neural pathways.
It does. So neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, it thrives with 2 things. It needs novelty and nutrition, just like exercise. If you want to
stimulate, do something new. Yeah.
Exactly. You go to the gym, you give it novelty. You go to you give your muscles novelty, some kind of stimulus, and then you give it nutrition. You feed it. Same thing with your mental muscles. It thrives. To get neuroplasticity, you need novelty, something new, and you need to feed it, proper nutrition so it can grow. And so when we're going through this, the key to, let's say you want to exercise, because when you exercise, you also create dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, these neurotransmitters, which are really essential for cognitive health and performance. And when you exercise, you have blood flow, and there's more oxygen to your brain and all the benefits, right? But let's say you're not doing that. So how do you motivate yourself to do it? The P times E times S3, P stands for purpose.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that? You did a great episode with our mutual friend, Simon Sinek. He has a great book called Start With Why. I don't mean your life purpose. I mean reasons. Because with reasons, you get results. Even if you want to remember someone's name, right? I think it's the number one business etiquette skill there is. Because how are you going to show somebody you're going to care for their future, their family, their wellness, their finances, whatever you have to offer them, if you don't care enough just to remember their name, right? And so people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so even remembering names, something you could easily do is just ask yourself before you meet the person, you see them at a distance, you're going to meet them, ask yourself why. You start with why. Why do I want to remember this person's name? Maybe it's to show the person some respect. Maybe it's to get a referral. Maybe it's to close a deal. Maybe it's to practice these things, I learned on the podcast. If you can't come up with a reason, you won't get the reward, because reasons reap results. It's similar to nobody remembers all names, but nobody listening forgets everyone's name either. There's some names you remember, and I believe at a fundamental level, genius leaves clues. That when you do something well, there's something that you're doing that you might not see, that there's a method behind what looks like magic. And I bet the people you tend to remember, some of them, you have a reason. You're motivated. You're attracted to them. They can be good for your business, right? There's some kind of emotion that's there. And the key to a long-term memory is information times emotion becomes a long-term memory. We remember things that make us feel a certain way. I mentioned dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. We are this chemical feeling soup. But the middle part of our brain, so our brain has three parts. We have this neocortex, and then we have this middle brain, and we have this reptilian brain. The middle brain is where you find your hippocampus, which it looks like a seahorse, and that the function is memory. Attached to that seahorse is part of your brain that looks like an almond. And that's your amygdala, which is like a switching station for emotions. But isn't it interesting that the hippocampus and amygdala, memory and emotions, are attached literally in your brain? And everyone knows this anecdotally. Like there isn't, I'm sure there's a song that you could hear that could take you back to when you're a teenager.
Yeah. Memory, isn't smell another one?
Or
like
food or a fragrance could take you back to when you're a kid.
Because you sat down, you're like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, and I still want the turkey, and oh, I'm so excited. And
yes, so that information by itself is forgettable, but information tied with emotion becomes unforgettable. And one of the ways you could activate more of your motivation is to feel it. So I believe not just intellectually. Let's say going back to you want to motivate yourself to get out of that box to work out, right? And you have limitless mindset, limitless method. You know how to work out and everything, but you're not motivated. First, start with the P, which is purpose. And it's not cognitive. Everyone knows intellectually why they should do it. Doesn't mean they do it, right? Because common sense is not common practice. I mean, it has to go from your head to your heart to your hands. I think another success formula is H cubed. That if you visualize things in your head, you set KPIs, goals, vision, whatever, and you're not acting with your hands to get that thing, check in with the second H, which is your heart, right? The heart symbolizes emotion. So it goes from your head to your heart, then to your hands. And so the P, purpose, is your heart. And so you have to feel it. So here's a quick example. I was in my neighborhood and I ran into somebody that looked extremely familiar. And I'm a memory expert. It was embarrassing because I didn't know who this person was. And a lot of pressure. But as soon as he opened up his mouth to say hi, I heard his voice and I knew who it was. But he looked completely different. I mean, he looked younger and fitter and he had this glow. I mean, the backstory was this guy was like the most unhealthy person you can imagine. And I was like, I need to know, like, how you look amazing. What are you doing? He tells me all the things he's doing, which is a lot of things we said earlier, like, the cold things and then diet, everything, and sleep. And I was like, well, we've been telling you, our friend circle have been telling you that for years, like, but you took pride in being unhealthy, right? And all your vices and exactly. And then he was like, yeah, but I went on this trip for work and I came back. And when I came back home, I found my daughter crying hysterically. And the story was she had this nightmare that her father died, right? And it touched him so much deeply here. He found that emotion, he found that purpose. So I mean, like when you come up with purpose, the P times E times S3, it's not intellectual. It has to be a feeling, So that he made the change and it was like, he never looked back. So, you can rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. How much purpose do you have in doing this thing, in meditating and reading and whatever you're trying to get yourself to do? Now, you can have limitless purpose and still not be motivated because you need the second element, which is E, and the E stands for energy. I realize that when I don't get a good night's sleep, we have a 1-year-old who's teething. And when you're exhausted, you're not going to be very motivated to work out, as an example, right? If you eat a big processed meal and you're in a food coma, you're not going to be very motivated to work out, right? So the E is energy. So in the book, I talk about the 10 levers for mental energy, right? The best brain food diet, how to manage your stress, how to optimize your sleep, supplements for energy, mental energy, and so on. And then you could have limitless purpose and limitless energy. Because again, if someone's not energized, they're not going to be motivated if they're exhausted. And still not be motivated to work out because you need S3. And S3 stands for small, simple steps. I realize, Danica, that some people are not motivated, even if they have purpose, they have emotions behind it and they have energy, because that goal is just too big. It's like a habit or a goal, a vision that they haven't, it's too intimidating. And a confused mind doesn't do anything. And S3 is small, simple steps. So maybe working out, if you've never done that in your life, is a big step. So a small, simple step is putting on your running shoes. That's one little thing, right? Let's say you want to read. I mean, I think it's important. Reading is the best exercise for your mind, bar none. I mean, and also the benefits you get. If somebody has decades of experience, they put into a book, and you can sit down and read that book in a few days. You could download decades into days. That's the biggest advantage that there is, right? And we get people reading a book a week. Most people read 2 or 3 books a year if they're lucky. We got everyone reading 50 books, 52 books a year, because that's a huge difference, right? Differential. Plus, it's great exercise to your mind. But if you're not reading, maybe it's a small, simple step, opening up the book. Because maybe you're not in the habit of reading, you haven't picked up a real book to study and since you were back in school. A small, simple step, opening up the book.
Yeah.
Reading one line. And nobody's going to stop at one line. Like, we just had on our podcast had a world-class biological dentist talking about oral health and brain health.
Sure.
And,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Beyond brushing. Right. And we're talking about oil pulling and scraping and all this other stuff and supplements.
Yeah.
And we were talking about flossing. And I was like, well, how do you get your kids to floss? And then, because that's a big deal. But maybe get your kids to floss 1 tooth. That's an S3, small, simple step. Because you have to put one sock in the hamper, right? Because then you get momentum. And I believe consistency compounds. That little by little, a little becomes a lot. So inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's too hard. So if you want motivation, you have purpose, right? You feel the reasons and the rewards that will come, and maybe the consequence of not following through, feel that. And then make sure you have proper energy. Remember, you don't have energy, you generate it, so you do it with the diet and the stress management and the meditation and the sleep and everything. And then how do you find your small, simple step? This question I ask myself multiple times a day. Whenever I feel stuck or I feel stalled and I don't know what to do, I ask myself, what is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal where I can't fail? What's the tiniest action I could take right now, operative word now, that will give me progress towards this goal? It's not something random, and where I can't fail. So that's where it's like, if my goal was to read an hour a day, what's the tiniest action I could take? Open up the book, right? Read one word, put on my running shoes, whatever it is, break it down into small, simple steps. And then it gets so easy because that consistency compounds, it adds up to little things, add up to big things.
But I was thinking about when you were talking about the brain, and I was thinking about sort of like a lot of people that I've talked to before, like Joe Dispenza, heart-brain coherence. And then I thought about earlier something you said about the brain that you had, but then I'm thinking about food and how in other cultures they believe that we have a second brain in our stomach. So first off, I don't know if that's something you've heard or believe in, but surely nutrition plays a huge role in our cognitive function, our hormones. What can we do to help our second brain, help our first brain?
Yeah, so this is a whole chapter on neuronutrition. Mm-hmm. So what we know is what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter. And they do refer to our gut as our second brain because there are huge clusters of nerve fibers there. And also where you create like serotonin and some of the other, like upwards of 80-90% of the serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, is produced in your gut. And there is this brain gut axis that so being able to still and trust your gut. We've all heard this language, your second brain. So what you eat matters, because imagine like your brain is like the flowers of a tree, and then it's going down, and your gut is the roots, right? And what you nourish flourishes. And it's what you assimilate, it's what you absorb. So a good brain diet is, so we know 1/3 of your brain's potential is predetermined by genetics and biology.
So is this like someone's perhaps inherent intelligence or creativity, things like that?
The research is suggesting 1/3 of your brain's potential or its performance is predetermined by genetics and biology, like your DNA. If somebody has, and now some people believe it's more than 2/3 that could affect it in your control because they believe it's 100% in your influence control with epigenetics and
Sure, like Bruce Lipton talks about that kind of stuff a lot. And,
I mean, my grandmother passed of Alzheimer's when I was 7. So, all these struggles put me on the path I'm on today. If anyone bought Limitless, we did over 1 million copies sold the first couple of years, and we donated all the proceeds to charity, all the author proceeds. To fund Alzheimer's research for women. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men. Yet most of the research is done on male brains.
Because we have to forget all the silly things you boys do. It's just, no, I'm just kidding. I had to. It was like the door opened and I was like, I got to walk through this one.
No, that was definitely a softball for you. I really put that up there. So it's like the idea here is, in memory of my grandmother, I just feel like, and we built schools from the proceeds of the book to build schools in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya, fully funded schools, not our schools, but just funded nonprofit schools for villages that didn't have education for girls. But anyway, because I think you learn to earn to return. Making dollars great, making a difference is really our mission, is to build better, brighter brain. No brains left behind. I believe you change your brain, you change your life, you change your brain, you change the world. But yeah, going back to nutrition, what you eat matters, especially for your gray matter. So in Limitless, we have a chapter on neuronutrition about the best brain foods. Now, everybody, I want to say it up front, everyone's bio-individual, right? Not every, something that's really great for somebody, other people could be their poison because they're allergic to it, they have allergies or whatever. That's why I think it's important. Just like there's personalized medicine based on your DNA, and there's personalized nutrition based on a microbiome test. Or a nutrient profile test. And we also created in the book, which I'm most excited about, is personalized learning and performance based on a 4-minute assessment on your brain type. So we talk about like how your optimal brain is kind of like your love language for brain. And then we show people how to learn faster, read faster, improve their memory based on their dominant brain. But going back to the foods, 10 of my favorite brain foods. And again, some of the people don't have that in their diet because they have a specific diet they're following. Actually, we can memorize these very quickly. I want everyone just to, everyone touch the top of your head and just say avocados. And imagine you're using guacamole to condition your scalp, right? Something silly like that. I'll show you that. Yeah, and it only takes a second to say and to do, but just pretend, who are the fastest learners, right? Children. So imagine you're an 8-year-old and we're doing this together. It's kind of silly, but let's test and see what's possible.
I'm in.
The second place is going to run down the body is nose. So what's the second place? Is your nose. And I want you to mention the second brain food, which are blueberries. Imagine blueberries coming out of your nose. Smell them, feel them in your nose. I like to call them brain berries. They're high in antioxidants, very neuroprotective. Number 3 is your mouth. So everybody listening, this is your verbal memory. Say mouth. Number 3, mouth. And the third brain food, broccoli. So imagine broccoli stuck in your teeth, but taste it and feel it's uncomfortable and you're embarrassed. So broccoli is high in something called sulforaphane, which is amazing for cognitive health and cognitive performance, especially if you sprout it. Then it becomes magnitudes, even better. But imagine broccoli stuck in your teeth. All right, the fourth place on your body, and this is a 2,500-year-old memory technique from ancient Greece. This is how they used to memorize poetry and speeches, are your ears. So what's number 4? Your ears. So for a moment, and you're cleaning it with the fourth brain food, which is olive oil. So imagine you're cleaning your ears with olive oil. The fifth place is your throat. So say it out loud. What's number 5?
Throat.
And I want you to imagine eggs. If your diet allows, eggs are so imagine like a hard-boiled egg. Instead of an Adam's apple, there's like a hard-boiled egg or an Easter egg or something to make it memorable. The choline in eggs is a precursor for acetylcholine, which is very important for cognitive health and cognitive performance. So egg, we're halfway there. And you probably remember what food is on top of your head, right?
Avocado.
Out of your nose.
Blueberries. Yeah.
Stuck in your teeth.
Broccoli.
And cleaning your ear.
Egg. I've had all of these in the last like 12 hours, so I'm feeling really like amazing about myself. Okay.
And it's amazing because, and we could do a couple more, shoulders is 6, so those are green leafy vegetables.
Okay.
Now, some people, again, they don't really digest it that well, and but for me, I spinach and kale. So imagine shoulder pads made out of spinach and kale. And then 7 is your collar, so touch your collarbone. And salmon. Salmon is a brain food. It's high in omega-3s, DHA. So imagine sardines would fall in that category. Flax would fall in that category. Imagine a necklace made out of salmon sushi. And even if you can't imagine it, imagine you can imagine it.
Yeah.
And maybe the salmon sushi is a week old.
So
that's where remember I said information times emotion.
Yeah.
Emotion and make it a little gross or silly or funny. 8 are your fingers. So just kind of wiggle your fingers. And the 8th brain food is turmeric. So it's very, so imagine that golden powder stuck in your nails and taking off your fingers.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So the active ingredient there is curcumin, which is very anti-inflammatory. 9 is your belly. So everyone touch your belly and say belly. What's number 9?
9's belly.
And then 9th brain food, walnuts. So imagine eating walnuts out of your belly button, something totally silly. Like if you're in the park or the mall and somebody was sitting on a bench eating walnuts out of their belly button, you wouldn't need to stare and study that and repeat it in your mind 100 times, right? You see it once and you'll never forget it. So walnuts are high in vitamin E, very neuroprotective. They actually look like a brain as an extra association to help you remember it. Walnuts. And finally, 10 is your bottom. So everyone say,
can't wait for this one. Can't wait for this one. Bottom.
Yeah. And that's a fun one. It's dark chocolate. I don't even need to know what everyone's picturing, but dark chocolate's good for your brain.
You did that on purpose. I did.
Actually. So the idea here is, and dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, not high sugar, that spikes your glucose, your insulin resistance and everything. But I mean, dark chocolate, high in the flavonoids, which generally is good for your mood, is going to be good for your mind. Now, imagine this. Okay, so the person listening to this, you might be driving or working out or whatever, but Danica reaches out to you and say, hey, we're going to do like a brain party tonight. While you're out, can you pick up these 10 things? And you're like, oh, I'm driving, I can't write it down. Or I'm in the shower, I can't write it down. I don't know why you pick up your phone in the shower, but you can't write it down. But you put it right just really quickly. It took more time to explain than to actually do it. Pictures worth 1,000 words. We have all these pictures of the body. Now you're walking around, the market, and you're walking down the aisles. And what's the first thing you have to buy on top of your head? Avocados. And then coming out of your nose, everybody.
Broccoli,
and cleaning your ears.
Oil,
in your throat, eggs, and on your shoulders.
Leafy greens.
And on your
salmon.
collar, you have the necklace made out of salmon. Your fingers, you have
turmeric,
and your belly button,
walnuts,
and your
and
bottom.
Dark chocolate.
Yeah,
that's so great.
And it's so much fun because I challenge everybody to actually test yourself. And maybe you got, maybe if you didn't do a technique like this, you would maybe remember 4 or 5. But maybe with this, you got 8 or 9, or maybe even all 10. And then can you do it backwards? If you go from dark chocolate to walnuts to turmeric
to salmon to leafy greens to eggs to broccoli to blueberries to avocado.
When you understand, that's amazing. When you understand how your brain works, you can work your brain. When you can understand how your memory works, you can work your memory. And what we're doing is great memory training. Remember, there's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory, and this is exercise for your memory. The challenge is a lot of our memories we're storing in our devices. They call it digital dementia. It's like, you're using your phone as an external memory hard drive. So it keeps your to-do list. It keeps your schedule. It keeps phone number, everything, right? Like how many phone numbers did you know growing up?
Right. Tons.
Yeah. And how many?
Now we know none.
Right. That's digital dementia. It's saying the high reliance on technology to memorize things for you. You don't have to memorize it. So your mental memory, it gets weaker. And I want to say out front, I don't want to memorize 500 phone numbers, but it should be very concerning. We've lost the ability to remember one phone number or a PIN number or a password or what we just read or so we just heard or something we're just about to do. So going back to this, memory is a muscle and it's use it or lose it. And I love technology, by the way, but the high reliance on technology, let's say your apartment or office is on the 5th floor. If you use technology like an elevator every single time, it's very convenient, just like the phone is to memorize things for you. But we're not getting those steps in, right? If you go to the bank and it's 8 blocks away and you drive there or take Lyft or Uber, yes, it's convenient, but that was an opportunity for us to get steps in, right? So it's like technology for me is a tool for us to use. But if the technology uses us, then we become the tool.
Wow.
So what I would like to do is just bring mindfulness into these choices. It's absolutely fine that I don't want to memorize all these numbers, but just like when we go to the gym, we want to be mentally, like physically fit. I think it's important to also balance it out with some mental fitness and also as well, so we can stay sharp as we grow older. Like we have the largest academy online of accelerated learning, speed reading, memory, focus, brain optimization, students in 195 countries, 195 countries. Yeah, every country in the world. So we get a lot of feedback. And I know that regardless of your age, your background, your career, your education level, your financial situation, gender, history, IQ, everybody can improve. Right. I've just made this my life's work because there's a method behind what looks like magic. Right. It's just we weren't taught any of these things, like a lot of things that you have on your podcast, not taught in school.
Right? True. School needs a whole revamp.
Yeah.
What do you think is the difference between the human brain and artificial intelligence?
There's a chapter in the book. It was inspired by how to use AI to enhance your HI. And HI is how to use artificial intelligence to improve your human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence. And so I'm always looking at how does technology like AI, how can I use it to augment and improve my life, right? Because technology is not good or bad inherently. It's just how it's applied.
I use it, of course.
Yeah, like fire is probably the earliest form of technology. It can be used to cook your food, or fire could burn down your home. It's just how it's used, right?
Yeah.
And so for AI, we use it with our clients to enhance their HI and their performance. So a few examples, right? I mentioned neuroplasticity earlier. We were talking about new brain cells, creating them and making new connections. If people didn't know what it was, they could go into a AI chatbot and say, explain to me neuroplasticity in a fun way as if I'm 10 years old, right? That would be a great way to build some kind of foundation of understanding. AI could also, like we have a podcast I mentioned. If I'm interviewing an author and I didn't happen to get their book in time, I don't like reading on screens personally. I just don't need another excuse to read digital. I when I travel, I read a book a day, right? So I don't want to, if I'm traveling, I don't want to carry 7 books with me. But when you understand how to read faster and not actually understand it and retain it, it's more enjoyable, right? So the average person in 21 days, we tripled their reading speed across the board, right? We trained this at Facebook, Nike, Google, SpaceX, Harvard, UCLA. It just, the US Air Force, we train people to handle information overload, right? But the idea here is you read to succeed. It makes you smarter and you learn all this great wisdom and insight and you compress decades into days. But when we're going to digital, like I don't need another excuse to be on a screen, right? Yeah. So for me, if I don't get the book in time, I could use AI, maybe it got lost in the mail or whatever, to say, summarize the key points of this book, right? Or if I'm interviewing somebody, I could say, I propose 10 great, compelling questions for this author or this expert that they've never been asked before, that my audience, brainy kind of audience, would appreciate, right? And then it becomes a augmented creative partner. I won't use those questions verbatim, but it would give me something to kind of build on and have a creative, intellectual partner. In Limitless, we talk about all these memory principles and memory techniques, like a memory palace. So what we just built on our body, it's a memory palace. It's a 2,500-year-old memory technique. And I wrote it in Greece because I found out that there's a goddess of memory in Greek mythology. And the Maimonides, like her children are the 9 muses. So the 9 muses, science, literature, and art, the mother of science, literature, and art is memory. And so I wanted to know, like, what did they do before there were printing presses? Like, how would they remember information before they were stored in books and on paper? So they used a 2,500-year-old memory technique called the memory palace, where you take places you're familiar with and store the information that you want to remember, like on a speech or something, like the key points to a speech. In this case, we took our body, which was the place, and we wanted to remember foods. And a lot of people probably still remember those 10 foods, right? Because you understand when memory work, you can remember, and you'll know it for weeks, and you could teach somebody, and you only learned it once, right? Yeah. And I encourage everyone to teach it, or list the 10 that you remember, and then post it on social media, and and tag us both in it. Tag Danica, tag myself so we get to see it. I'll repost a couple and we'll gift out a few signed copies
Oh,
randomly.
that's so cool.
Just to thank you for playing with us. But the idea here is when you understand how your memory works, you could work your memory better. When we're talking about like nutrition and the foods for the brain, your memory, this ancient memory technique is something that I'm really excited about. But in there, we talk about memory palaces. So you could say like, hey, this is what I need to memorize in AI, create a memory palace for me. And it could build a memory palace, a story, help you memorize it.
It's like a third brain. It's your third brain now.
It's exactly that. We talk about mind mapping and the power of whole brain note taking, you could put your traditional linear notes into a generative AI and say, mind map this for me. And mind mapping is a whole brain note taking technique, and it could help you organize the information to make it more memorable, right? I believe the future of education, a lot of it is going to be personalization. So you could have it test you. So retrieval practice, it could quiz you, it could space out the lessons that you want to learn. So we built, like, even with our course is online, our academy, we created a quick bot and we fed it every one of my speeches and my trainings and my programs. So it could answer like incredibly well as I can, if not in some areas even better and even more concise. Like, how do you memorize a periodic table for somebody struggling with that? Or I need to be able to do this presentation or this sales script or whatever. And so I think AI is a wonderful tool for us to use, just like any tool, like the internet or anything else, to make life a little bit more easier and enjoyable.
And Fair and I agree. I think that it's a very, what a time to be alive right now, but there are scary aspects to it. So what I'm curious about is, what do you think the brain has that AI doesn't? What makes it unique and special, and why would it be something that we would want to hold on to, as opposed to all be part of Neuralink someday?
When people come to me over the past 30 years, they want to memorize facts, figures, formulas, whatever, right? And certainly a device could do that for you. And we show people to do that because, remember, going back to the key principle is that life is letters C between B and D. Everything comes down to our choices and our decisions, but we can only make good choices based on the information we know. And that means we remembered it, right, to begin with. And so we have to be able to learn it, be able to retain it. Now, how do you apply this towards where the world is and everything else like that? I don't think it's just remembering facts and figures and formulas. Maybe you have to do that for work or for school. I think it's about remembering the things that make us human, the things that make us laugh. Okay, so I spent a lot of time in senior centers, maybe because I lost my grandparents, when I was very, very young. Because I didn't have that. And I go there to help them with their memory, to help polish off their memories, right? And I also get a lot of wisdom for people. I think the life you live are the lessons you teach. The life you live are the lessons you teach the people around you. And so I learn all these lessons. And I hear a lot of regret. And I'll bring this back to AI in a second. But like at some point when it gets really personal, somebody at the senior center, they'll share some kind of regret where somehow they limit their life because of what other people would think. Like, they didn't pursue that relationship because of what their friends would think about that relationship, or they started a career path because it was expected of them by their parents. They're pressured to do that or whatever. And I just want to remind everybody that when we're taking our final breaths, and it's not very positive, when you're taking your final breaths, none of other people's opinions or their expectations are going to matter. What's going to matter is how we laughed, how we lived, how we loved, how we learned, how we lived, right? And so I think those are the things worth remembering. When I lost my grandmother, it was very confusing. I was 5 years old. She started showing signs, and I had my brain injury, right? So I was also going through all of that. And she would call me by my father's name, or she would repeat something she just said 30 seconds ago. And anyone who's listening to this who has had a family member or someone close to them that they cared about with brain aging, like dementia, it's like when people lose their memory, it's like that tapestry is like who you are, right? Like if somebody lost like all their memories, like they're not going to be the same person.
Right.
To answer your question, I'm not an AI expert. We use it as a tool within our academy, with our clients, showing them how to enhance their productivity and performance. But the human parts, just like the things you want to remember, not just the facts and figures and the data that AI and even your brain can remember, all our brains can remember. But I think it's those human moments, remembering, those precious moments, remember our loved ones, remembering, our laughter and all those things. I feel like that's what makes us feel like we're human. And I feel also we're human when we have more to grow, so we get more to give. And I call them in the book grow givers. Like so many people are like in the 80s, it was about getting, right? Go getting. And then it was like giving, but then you have nothing left and you become a martyr, and anyone who's like, just wants to make everybody happy. But I feel like if you grow, you have more to give, right? And that's why you grow. Because everything in nature has to grow and give.
More capacity then, yeah.
Exactly. Because then if you look at nature, everything is green or it grows, or it's brown and it rots. And everything in nature also has to give back to the ecosystem. Otherwise, it's eliminated.
What a great analogy for life right now.
Again, learn to earn, then you can return. But you have to take care of yourself. And I don't know who needs to hear this right now. You have permission to rest. You don't have to fix 100% of all the world's problems, all your, the problems of your family and everything else like that. You have permission to rest, to be able to recover, to be able to do that. So sometimes I don't think we give ourselves permission, that we feel like we're just going. And sometimes we're burnt out because we're doing too much, certainly. Like I think a lot of people in our communities are burnt out. They say they're burnt out because they're doing too much. I also think sometimes we're burnt out not because we're doing too much. Sometimes we're burnt out because we're doing too little of the things that make us come alive, the things that nurture our souls, the things that light us up, And I feel like also part of it is self-care is not just going to the spa and eating great brain food. Part of self-care is looking in the mirror and seeing that reflection back and honoring that person who's been through so much, but is still standing, right? Because life is hard for one of two reasons, going back to how we started this conversation. Life is hard because you're leaving your comfort zone. You're doing the hard things we talked about. Or life is hard because you're staying in your comfort zone, right? Because then nothing changes. Like comfort zone's a nice place to visit, but nothing grows there.
Totally.
And I feel like, if anyone is listening to this, they're willing to learn. They're willing to kind of they want to redraw the borders and boundaries of what's possible. Where I'm excited about it, AI, is we use that as just one of the contributors to create. Remember I talked about personalized medicine based on an assessment, like a DNA assessment, personalized nutrition based on microbiome test. We create personalized learning and personalized performance based on your brain type. And I'm really curious about yours. So it's in the book.
When you said it's a 4-minute test.
Yeah.
You said it's a 4-minute test. I'm totally going to take that. Yeah. I was like, do we have time now? No, I'll do it. I'm going to get the book. I think I don't think I have been so intrigued about a book until speaking to you, but this sounds amazing. And I'm totally taking the test. Yeah.
I appreciate it, Danica. And the reward that comes from it, and people could take the assessment at mybrainanimal.com. It's free. And we used to charge, our clients for this, or coaching. But what I realized, because this could be a big takeaway from this conversation, it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. It's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. And we all have genius in different ways. But if you've ever been interested in a topic, you're not getting it for some reason, maybe like because your brain type is different than the teacher's brain type, and like your style of learning is different than their style of teaching, and you pass each other. It's
or
like
even at the workplace, like someone's way of communicating is not your way of communicating. You're like, you're good at what you do and I'm good at what I do, but they ain't the same things and we're not speaking the same language. But
exactly,
that definitely happens.
It's like a love language for your brain.
Yeah.
There are 4 brain types, and the 1 minute of it is code, CODE. The C are your cheetahs. So if you're a cheetah, your primary trait is action. These are people who thrive in fast-paced environment. They have strong intuition. They act. The O in code are your owls, and your owls, their primary trait is logic, right? They love data. They love facts. They love figures. The D in code are people, their primary trait is creativity. They're great problem solvers. They see pattern recognition. They have a vision for their life that other people can't yet see. And the E are your elephants. And your elephant's dominant trait is empathy. And they have high compassion, strong interpersonal skills. But here's the gift. You go through that, and then you get a report based on because everybody, remember I said every food people react differently to, every workout, it's different for every person.
Yeah.
Well, I could give a lot of speed reading tips and memory tips and focus tips, but this way we can customize the tips and the techniques based on your brain type.
Oh, cool.
Because, like, think about this. Like, we had our team take this assessment, and 100% of our customer service team, they're all elephants. And we need.
I was going to say, they're obviously empathy.
Yeah. Because they want people, they're our community builders. They want our communities to feel seen and heard. Sure. My business partner is a dolphin. She's the creative visionary of the company. You know, our CFO, our financial person, is an owl. And, you know, you see this also in pop culture. If you watch Friends, Joey's your cheetah, just acts, doesn't think.
I got a lot of cheetah in me.
Ross is your scientist, the professor, the owl, right? Creative was Phoebe.
They're like archetypes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so when you see this, it takes the judgment off yourself and also around other people, because you have your kids do it, your significant other, your partner, your team, and it explains their behavior also as well. And it's just very enlightening. Even if you're selling to an owl, you use logic and data and facts and evidence.
Exactly. If you're selling to the elephant, you go, so I sat down with this 4-year-old and she was so cute. And all of a sudden the elephant's going to be like, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it's based on that relationship. You know, if you sell to a dolphin, you sell them on the vision, because that's how they're very creative like that.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool.
Parenting, everything. And it's a gift for everyone, you know, who's listening.
So much fascinating information, Jim. Thank you so much. I can't wait to tell you what I am.
Yeah, definitely. I'd be curious. People could take a picture. You'll get this AI art. They could post it online and tag us both so we can see what the dominant animal is for your community. And I'll do the same thing. I'll repost it because if you tag us, we'll get to see it. But my message for everyone is I want to thank you for having me on your show. I really enjoy your show. You're really fun to talk to, and you're an inspiring force of nature. And I would say, if everyone's listening, that there's a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we show up every single day until we're introduced. So remember, you change your brain, you change your life, you change your brain. We change the world.
Amen. I love that. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.